On today's show, we'll be breaking down the Central Division's draft haul in the 2023 NHL Draft. Me and Sebastian are going to break that down for you coming up on Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you during the week. My name is Hadi Kalakesh. I'm joined by Sebastian Hai. We're both from Dobber Prospects, the head scouts of the Dobber Prospects scouting team. And we're more than glad to break down the draft haul of the 2023 NHL Draft for the Central Division in this episode, starting off with the Arizona Coyotes. Sebastian, what do you think of these two first-round picks at 6th and 12th overall?
I threw my hands up in the air in celebration when Dmitry Simashev's name got called at 6th overall. He's one of the biggest wild cards in this draft class. He could have gone, as he did, 6th, or he could have fallen to like 27. I think anything in that range was a possibility, depending how teams liked him. Though when we started hearing that scouts were really, really, really high on him, which makes a lot of sense because it mirrors the public. I mean, Dmitry Simashev ended up, I believe, like 8th or 9th on my final board, 9th overall on my final board, and my top-ranked defenseman. So to pick him at 6th overall is amazing, and I was so happy to see it happen because, look, Arizona is taking some fun swings here, and Dmitry Simashev is, in my opinion, the best defender in this draft class. He shuts down transition extremely well. He's super strong in zone. He's extremely mobile, one of the best skaters in the entire class.
Very good,
incredibly physical when he wants to be, and against even adult competition in Russia, in both the VHL and the KHL. I had KHL viewings where he played 2 minutes a night, but when he was on the ice, he was a general, and he was commanding his teammates around. Yep. There is some impressive confidence there as well, and I think the offensive game could really grow a lot. There's a lot of upside there with the mobility, the flashes of creativity. At his best, he can go end to end, and then on a dime, a perfect cross crease pass for a teammate. And routinely, that would happen, and it would never go in the back of the net. It would never end up going well. And it's why for the first 18 NHL games this season, he only had a single assist. He made up a lot of ground later on in the season in terms of production, but look, 6th overall. 6th overall is a little bit much for me because Matvei Michkov was on the board still, and Zach Benson was still on the board. But if you're going defense at 6th overall, there is no better player in my mind than Dmitry Simashev.
Absolutely. And Daniil But, to me, I mean, I've never really gotten that much of the hype. I understand that
he's grown on me.
He's got some size. He's got some playmaking ability. I like the shot, but it's just, you never know what you're getting out of him. You never know what player, what version of Daniil But you're getting in a given game. Sometimes I thought he looked more like a checking scorer. Some games he looked more like a playmaker. Never really looked like the most intense player or the most effortful player. His skating's a bit off and weird.
Wonky. And again, it's wonky.
Yeah, and I've especially seen him get out-muscled by 5'10" defenders in the MHL. So
he needs to learn how to leverage his physicality, which I think he can. And he grew a lot on me as the year went onward. And like my first Daniil But viewing, I'm sure Hattie can attest. I wrote like a game report on Daniil But in like September, like our internal Dauber game reports, and it kind of read like a rant. It was by far the worst viewing I had all year from any player, any draft eligible. Like, it wasn't close. That was the worst one. And I was too scared to go back until, like, end of November, early December, and realized pretty quickly that the first game was an outlier. And he ended up inside my first round. I think he finished, like, 29th or 28th on my board, and I like him. And there's a lot of upside there. At his best, he is a power forward with really good stick work, very soft hands, a wicked shot, a really good shot.
Yeah.
And even the playmaking, like Daniil But was a shockingly good playmaker in professional hockey this season, which you don't necessarily like. It's not the first thing that jumps out at you when you watch him play. but he makes some really fun, like very good, quick passes to the slot to an open teammate where he makes it look easy. And in reality, it's quite a high skill play, but he's, I don't know, kind of his demeanor is, as you were saying, it's not the most intense. It's almost, he seems like he's playing like a disengaged game, but if you dig a little bit deeper, there's a ton of skill. And look, it's a massive swing at 12, both physically and in terms of potential. But I can kind of see it being rationalized. It wouldn't have been the swing that I would have taken, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And I mean, the Yotes did, like, they were only making fun draft picks. I mean, Michael Hrabal at 38, he scares me a bit, but the upside's huge. It's all raw potential, and he's 6'7", and he moves very, very fluidly. I like the Noel Nord pick a ton.
That's another good pick. Yeah,
he's a really skilled, big forward with good hands. He's a decent enough playmaker. He's a decent shot. There's a lot to work with there. Nord is kind of a blank slate. I think you could kind of mold him into whatever style of player you want him to become, because he's kind of good enough at everything. But at this point, you have to double down on certain tools and kind of go all in on those to make him an intriguing NHL potential player. But I like that pick. Jonathan Castagna at 70. I like Del Alce a lot more if we're going to pick a St. Andrews guy. But it's Canadian prep school hockey. It's okay. Sure. 70th overall. Why not? Tanner Lutka. I like that pick. He's a very skilled playmaker. And I wasn't the highest on him among public scouts. I know Gabe Foley loves Tanner Lutka, but I do like him. I think there's some interesting potential there in the playmaking and the shiftiness and the handling. The shot needs to come a bit further. I think the engagement isn't the highest, but there's a nice little foundation to work around there, and he is very skilled. So getting that in the 80s, I think, is perfectly fine value.
Absolutely. Now moving on to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, any surprise at first overall? I don't think so. I think we can all agree.
Shockingly, it was Bedard. Who could have thought? But
right. I mean, just
it was a good pick.
Just an absolute
shock. I'm not going to take any notes off of them. I mean, it was the only pick at one, and the one that I was hyped about.
There's no doubt about it.
Hype. I don't want to love the Chicago Blackhawks, but now they have a center core of Bedard, Oliver Moore, and Frank Nazar, and it's good. It's really good. Oliver Moore is the best skater in the draft class. He's incredibly quick. He'd be among the top 5 fastest NHLers already. And he pairs that with great defensive ability, underrated playmaking. The big knock on him in terms of NHL circles, less so public scouting circles, is that his brain can't keep up with his feet.
That's what I thought at the beginning of the year.
I haven't seen the same thing. Oliver Moore was at 7th overall basically since December on my board. I adore this player. He reminds me a ton of Dylan Larkin, and especially in Chicago, where he won't have the pressure to be the number 1 center because they have a guy called Connor Bedard, who they also got in this draft. I think the situation for him is excellent. And then you can move Frank Nazar to the right wing, and you're looking pretty good. So absolutely. It was a very good day one of the draft for Chicago.
Yeah, no, a couple other picks that I really like from them: Roman Kanserov, Martin Misiak, Nick Lardis. Just a fantastic value pick at 67. I love the goal scoring on him. It's just a really good shooter.
I agree.
Other than that, Alex Ferrand was a decent one as well.
It's a good one.
And Marcel, one of the best names in the draft, of course.
And the most dominant third liner in the entire QMJHL. I watched him live quite a few times, and this man is 243 pounds in the queue. It is absurd.
It's ridiculous.
It's surreal. The one pick I found funny was Adam Gajan at 35. Because, obviously, at the draft, I was chatting with a bunch of public scouts, and my hot take was that I thought he'd go in the first round, and that he'd be the first goalie selected. And I was very close to being right. So he was the first goalie picked, but it was at 35 on day 2. But
absolutely,
I was not surprised whatsoever.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota right after these messages.
But first, let's talk about our sponsors at Birddogs. Birddogs are committed to making you look good. Whether you're going for a walk with your dog or going to the office, Birddogs pants make sure that every experience with them is a good one. That is because they prioritize not only comfort, but the way you look as well. which is kind of the combination you want with a good pair of pants. Unlike traditional cotton pants, Birddogs' proprietary cloud knit fabric makes sure that you stay cool and dry all day, every day. On top of that, they fit you a little bit slimmer than traditional pants may, which makes sure that you look sharp at every occasion. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter the promo code LockedOnNHL at checkout to make sure that you get a free Yeti-style tumbler with your first order. That is birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler to go with your order. You won't take off your bird dogs. We'll promise you that.
All right, so moving on to the three next teams in the Pacific in alphabetical order. We'll start with the Colorado Avalanche, who had 2 picks in the first round, gracious of the Montreal Canadiens. But yeah, no, let's look into that. Callum Ritchie at 27.
Awesome
I think
pick.
this is a plus value pick for sure. He's got some grit and nastiness to him, but God, is he smart. He's so intelligent with the puck.
He's a great playmaker. He's super tenacious, but yeah, it's the intelligence that pops off. He's top 10
Absolutely.
in the class in terms of anticipation, in terms of processing speed, everything that's hockey IQ related. He's up there in this draft class. And to get that player at 27, especially in a lineup where he's never going to have the pressure to be the guy,
Yep.
this is great value. And whether it's down the middle or on the wing, he's going to be great.
Yeah, and Mikhail Gulyayev, one of the most mobile defensemen in the draft, really, really good gap control in the neutral zone, defending the rush. He was the pick for Locked On Avalanche at 27th in their mock draft. So to get him
they're happy
first, absolutely, just fantastic value. We're talking about that after the draft. It was just fantastic to have them pick the right player, but just in the wrong spot.
Jeremy Hansel got picked. That was awesome. I'm very happy
really
he got selected. He
Absolutely.
totally earned a pick. Some of the scouts were almost expecting him to go in the top 3 rounds, so he fell further than some people expected. But yeah, awesome selection, and I mean Colorado drafts well, so I'm not surprised.
Absolutely. And one guy I really thought would get picked a lot higher than he did was Maro Shidliska. I had him as kind of a borderline honorable mention for me. He's a decently skilled center with size. He can move the puck really well. But on top of that, he's got that forechecking element that a lot of teams are looking for Zvolyan in the Slovak league. I really, really liked what I saw from him. So I'm pretty impressed with that pick at 219 from Colorado, but Colorado's going to Colorado. They just do what they do. So absolutely. Moving on to the Dallas Stars. We start off with a very weird pick at 61st overall in Tristan Bertucci. What are your thoughts?
I watched quite a bit of him this season. He was definitely worth a pick at some point in the draft. Yep. Top 2 rounds is a bit rich for me personally. I don't see super high end tools, but he got a lot better as the year went on. So in my view, this is a pick that is very much based on his trajectory in his development. And you can do worse with it. It's just top 64 is really quite a bit much for me personally. Same with Brad Gardner at 79.
Yeah,
I watched him this entire year here in Ottawa, and look, there's a reason I had Pinelli ranked top 50 and did not have Brad Gardner ranked whatsoever. Like he's a good middle 6 OHL center. I don't know what the professional upside is. I'm not sure what he's going to make like his identity moving forward in terms of the abilities that he's really going to build on as his identity in professional hockey, because he's well rounded, but there isn't
what does he
elite
have?
Skill that elevates him, and that concerns me personally. But at the same time, the next 2 picks, there are 2 other picks I liked a lot for Dallas, which were Aaron Manishin at 125. Awesome value. I like Manishin a ton. This is a mobile offensive defenseman who, at his best, is quite reminiscent of Seamus Casey from last season. And we all know how Casey progressed when he went to Michigan. So I'm very curious to see how Manishin does going to Boston College, along with a ton of talented players, including the entire top line of the NTDP. And that was a good pick. And the other one was, I'm going to say this in German because I can, Arno Tiefensee. Great name. Awesome name. German goaltender who I watched, I think, once this season, and he had some big fans in the scouting world. And he's a lot of fun, overager, but putting up awesome numbers in the DEL in professional hockey. very controlled movements, and that was a fun swing. And Dallas's goalie scout is always very strong. Like we saw that with the Rémi Poirier selection a couple of years ago. They always find some nice little diamonds in the rough.
Absolutely. Now we're going to move on to Minnesota. We've got a bit more to talk about regarding them. That first pick, man, Charlie Stramel, 21st overall.
It's a bet,
tiny bit rich for me.
It's a bet that his draft year was an outlier, because if you go back a year's time, he was a consensus top 10 prospect in this draft class. In the NTDP as a D-1, he's one of the top playmakers in the class, really flashing his plus level toolkit in terms of the skating and the strength. And even the defensive game was quite solid in the NTDP. And Wisconsin is a tough environment. It was really tough this season for anyone to look good on that team. But with a coaching change and hopefully some different systems to work in, I could see this pick paying off. It's a really big risk that I wouldn't have taken, but I can see the rationalization of this is a dominant physical center who was given tough matchups this year, was not in a position to produce much, and is a really impressive playmaker. I can see it. But at the same time, look, if you switch that pick with Riley Heidt at 64th overall,
yeah.
Hey, I'm down. So as a whole, it's okay. Rasmus Kumpalainen at 53 is a bit much for me as well. But look, Minnesota drafts well, and their track record is so strong. I'm not going to doubt them on these picks at all.
Yeah, for sure. I really hope that Wisconsin can pull things together, because Stramel, like you said, has a lot of individual tools that are really promising. I'm not as high on his skating. It's a bit of a concern for me. Just
I like the power lack of agility.
It is a powerful stride. I just don't think he'll have much
maneuverability. Good. Yeah, the agility needs work, but I think the foundation of the skating is strong enough, especially when you pair it with his physicality, that I'm not overly worried on that front personally.
For sure. For me, Riley Heidt is just that's their diamond in the rough here at 64.
You love Heidt.
He's basically Yanni Gourde with better playmaking. Just in terms of the intensity, he's so nasty too. You can nasty. See him. You can see him between whistles, just like throwing a punch behind the ref's back, just chirping the bench, and just he's got that intensity and that drive to get under opponent's skin that I really like.
The snarl. He's snarly.
He's so snarly, and on top of that, just the playmaking is high end. I don't think he's got that best shot.
The goal scoring's my biggest concern personally. I think he will need to become a dual threat, but he has a combination of high-end skating, high-end intensity, high-end handling, and even better playmaking than all of those other tools. So I think you can definitely work with that toolkit, and getting that almost in the third round is, in my view, almost absurd. I don't think he should have fallen that far.
Absolutely.
But the goal scoring and the shot really does need some attention, because if he doesn't have that second threat in the NHL, he's going to become very predictable, and that's always a bit risky. But hey, there's such a great foundation there, and at 64, you cannot complain whatsoever. Yeah.
It's ridiculous value. And quick shout out to Aaron Pionk, who I kind of like at 149th from the Waterloo Blackhawks, the younger brother of Neil Pionk, but plays a very different game, a very defense-based game, really good gap control in the neutral zone, loves to angle opponents out of the middle of the ice. I don't know what his offensive projection looks to be. I've never really seen anything from him offensively that jumps out, but the defense, just the rush defending alone, just puts him in the kind of 4th, 5th round range for me. So this is great value. That's it for that trio of Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota. Now we're going to move on to the last trio of teams in Nashville, St. Louis, and Washington for the 2023 NHL Draft full haul of the Central Division right after these messages. Alrighty, so moving on to the last 3 teams of the Central Division in alphabetical order, we'll look at Nashville, St. Louis, and Washington's draft hauls and kind of break that down for you. So we've got a lot to talk about for Nashville. A great
I have my Nashville hat on. I'm ready for this. I'm prepared. It was the hat we got in our media gift bags, and it's quite nice. And I'm wearing it.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah. So Matthew Wood at 15th, bit high for me, but I like the player. He reminds you a lot of Tyler Toffoli. great shot, great abilities in transition when he gets involved. Not in terms of skating, but in terms of playmaking for sure.
Not
Um,
skating.
Not skating. His skating's his worst attribute by a very decent margin, I think. Because even defensively, his impact's decent when he's able to get into position. But the issue is getting into position
Yeah.
and back checking fast enough to get involved. But yeah, no, this pick is decent at 15, a bit higher. It's a bit rich for me, but what do you think?
I like it. I mean, look, Barry Trotz told his scouts to take their swings, and Matthew Wood is a swing and a half. What you're getting with him is an elite shot, first and foremost,
Yep.
which did not result in as many goals as it should have as an NCAA freshman. His distribution game and playmaking grew a ton this season. The handling is elite, but in terms of the playmaking, he became far more effective in solving problems with his passing ability because his feet don't solve any problems for him. But he adapted, he learned, and he became a very effective NCAA piece. The skating needs work, obviously. The defensive engagement also needs a ton of work, but he's really smart, and those offensive tools are really slam dunk awesome. So I love the swing. I think Nashville's a great landing spot for him in terms of that style of play, the power game. The big swing on upside that I was perhaps less enamored with was Tanner Melendek. That scares me. He is a top 3 skater in the draft class, easy, like without a doubt. Like,
and probably the best rush defender. Probably the rush defender in the class.
I like Bo.
Simashev's up there. Yeah.
Bo Aki and Simashev for me are a little bit higher, maybe. Reinbacher's in that same tier, but he's up there. He's a strong rush defender for sure. And I like a lot of attributes in his game, but it never came together this season. Like, he was never a dynamic offensive piece. He struggled to really be creative in the WHL environment, and that scares me in terms of that projection. At the same time, the tools are all there. He has all the tools in the world. Like, he's a great passing mechanic, as we said, elite skater. He could become something really interesting. I just think there's a lot more projection with him than with other players that were still available in the slot. I think I had him ranked like around like my late 40s or early 50s, and
same here.
It might be a little bit low in retrospect, but hey, I like the tools a lot. It's just, it's a very strong draft class, and there are other players with similarly intriguing tools in the slot with better upside that I think were a lot safer than Melendek is.
100%. And moving on to my boy, Felix Nilsson at 43rd overall to Rögle, from Rögle in the Swedish hockey league. Now, he's played a decent chunk of time in the SHL, and that's where I liked him the most. I know you're not as high on him as I am, but I really, really liked what I saw from him.
I like him. I like him as a future bottom 6 piece. I think you see upside beyond that point, which I have yet to really discover. But I've also been very, very skeptical of my own viewings, just because every single public scout I know that's watched a lot of him adores him. So I haven't exactly been very vocal about my skepticism because I doubt it. But yeah, he's good. He's a responsible center. He's a good distributor. He has plus level tools across the board. Good defensively, and he's really smart. Like, to me, it's the intelligence that I'm most intrigued by. It's more just, I would have picked him in like the 3rd or 4th round maybe, but the second was a little bit high for me. But I mean, hey, you guys love him, and I was happy that like all the public scouts around us were really pumped with this pick, so I was happy for them with it. But
you just don't see it. No, I get it. I understand.
I see something intriguing. I don't see a 43rd overall selection type of player.
Well, here's the thing. That intelligence is really the way it manifests, because he's got so many pro level habits, but it's just the ability to get off the boards and find a quick pocket of skate.
He's so projectable. He's incredibly projectable.
It's beyond that. It's just, there are so many opportunities for him to explore areas of his game, like his playmaking, his goal scoring, his handling, which are average to below average tools. I'll concede that, but it's just the opportunities that he has to explore that side of his game are a lot more enticing than, for example, a Tanner Molendijk, who's got all those those elements of his game, those individual tools, but has no room to explore them because he's not putting himself in offensive situations as often. He's not exploring the offensive side of his game as often. Felix Nielsen is constantly exploring, and that's one thing I look for with prospects, especially prospects with high intelligence, is it's just a matter of time before they develop the abilities with those smarts and with, seeing enough of those circumstances, those situations. It's just a matter of time. Now, Kalen Lind at 46 is a really interesting one, though. I think this is
violent.
He's very aggressive, but on top of that, he's a sneaky good playmaker.
And he's a hard shot.
Yeah. A lot of his passes come off fakes, which I'd love to see. He loves to, fake a shot and then pass, a look-off pass or that kind of thing. So he's got some decent, interesting, alluring habits on top of being one of the most aggressive players in the draft. So I don't know if 46 is where I would have picked him. That's a bit high, but I like
it's a swing on upside. Look, they're definitely they're staying honest to what they're saying in terms of swing on upside. It's definitely an upside swing. Two picks I liked a lot later on in their class were Joey Willis and Aiden Fink. Those are two undersized players that are really fun. Willis is one of the best defensive centers in the entire OHL already. He's kind of an Owen Beck light, and I know Lauren Kelly has been on that train all year, and we are just going to repeat what she's been saying about him because I think she's right. I'm a big fan of Willis. Really fun. I think the handling and the playmaking are better than he's given credit for. He's more creative than other defensive centers are. There's a lot of room to grow with him. And Saginaw is an awesome system for him to explore that creativity in. And then Aiden Fink was a really fun one. He's a fun, but was it AJHL or BCHL?
It's AJHL.
AJHL, yeah. Really fun in that league and super skilled. And what was fun about the selection, too, was that it was David Poile's final trade and selection as the general manager of the Nashville Predators. And you can do so much worse than Aiden Fink in the 7th round. So that was a great pick. And he got a standing ovation. I think Fink kind of lost his special moment there because it was very much the David Poile show at the draft. But we were all on our feet clapping, and I know I personally was clapping both for Poile, but also for Aiden Fink because he deserved the selection, and it was a great pick for Nashville.
Absolutely. Now, moving on quickly to St. Louis. Now, we can talk about their trio of first-rounders.
Yep.
Dalibor Dvorsky's a bit high. Personally, I think that I probably would have waited a couple slots, but he's high on a lot of NHL scouts rankings. So
he's going to be a middle six center, and
absolutely.
And in my view, I think St. Louis is hoping to have their next Rhino rally with Dvorsky, and I think they're Look, in terms of the defensive game, in terms of the shooting ability, the off puck intelligence, I can see the building blocks. I think it has to come together a lot more in terms of reaching that. Look, O'Reilly is upper echelon of ceiling, obviously here, but I think it might be there. Otto Stenberg's another really fun pick. I am a big fan. I had him ranked, I think, like 17th or 18th overall. Super skilled, great toolkit, amazing skater, great handler, creative. I think if you have him as Dvorsky's left wing, they'd be very complementary to one another. So that's fun. Theo Lindstein was a pick that I was expecting at 29, but wasn't enamored with. I think, yes, you have to. Teams were going to reach on defenders once those top couple tiers were off the board, and Lindstein was among the glut of other defensemen that were contenders to be picked in this range, and he isn't the one that I would have personally selected. I think if he really pans out, you get like number 5, number 4 defenseman max. And there are other players that I would rather spend that draft pick on, or if you're set on defense, I would just trade down. And I think you could have gotten a bit more value with it. But look, he's a decent distributor. He has some tools that I think are intriguing. He's decently mobile. There's some flashes of good shutdown defense. Like, there's building blocks, but first round's a little bit much for me personally.
Yeah, and Quentin Burns has a lot of the same profile, but I feel like he has maybe even a bit more intelligence and awareness.
I like Burns more than I think I like Burns more than Lindstein. They're in my same tier. Like, they're really close. I have both ranked in like between 80 and 85, I think. But that's a nice pick at 74. I I was a lot higher on him actually as a D-1. Like whenever I was watching Shane Wright, I was like, Matthew Soto and Quentin Burns are going to be amazing draft eligibles. And then this year, both kind of stagnated, but it was a tough environment in Kingston. And look, he was playing way, way more than he should have. He was getting like 30 minutes a night, and he was not cut out for that against high-end competition in the OHL. So this is also a pick that I think could age quite nicely within the next 2 years, where he gets a role that's more appropriate to his toolkit, and he could excel. He's a decent enough passer. There are fun tools there, but yeah.
And then we can, I mean, I like your Picard chick personally as just a kind of final mention for this ranking. It's just, he's very raw, but the skill set's definitely there. The skating's definitely there. He's got a bunch of little tools that make you really kind of interested in what he can bring, but
it's a bit high.
It's a little bit high. Yeah, no, that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you so much.
We still have Winnipeg, don't we?
We do have Winnipeg.
Yeah, the Jets. I mean, look, everyone forgets about Winnipeg anyways, but hey.
And did I say Washington? Did I say Washington in the intro of the segment too?
I forget. We're fine.
Okay. Anyway, moving on. And then to finish things off, we're going to end up with the Winnipeg Jets. Really quickly, Colby Barlow. It's a bit rich at 18.
I disagree. I think it would have been rich top 15. I think 18th overall is perfectly fine. You are getting a pro-ready player who I mean hopefully gets one more year in the O, but he could play NHL minutes pretty competently already. Yeah. He looks like an NHLer in terms.
He looks like he owns a mortgage. Like
how am I 3 years older than Barlow? Like
it's ridiculous.
Like it's not. I shouldn't be. But I think 18 is perfectly reasonable. You're getting a player like you know what you're getting with Barlow. You're going to get likely a third line power forward, but there's perhaps second line upside there. One of the better pure shots in the class. I'm not convinced the offensive movement off puck is super high end to complement that in terms of getting into goal scoring positions. And he's very linear. I think that that's my biggest critique is how linear he is. Like he darts up the ice
north south.
Yep. No one keeps up with him. He shoots off like a meh angle, I guess. And he beats a lot of OHL goaltenders with that shot. And I don't think it's the most projectable way of scoring goals. However, if he can integrate some more, I guess, creativity in his off-puck movement and being a bit more adaptable to situations, some more like lateral movement.
Yeah, and any east-west movement. Yeah.
If he can become a high-end net front presence, I'm starting to become very intrigued. And there's goal-scoring upside here. I don't think he's the best defensively. My player comp is still Josh Anderson here, but I think that there are ways where he could surpass that player comp. So at 18th overall, I'm totally okay with it, especially because he plays a style where his value is only going to go up in this league from an 18th overall selection. So from that perspective, I think it's a perfectly reasonable pick here.
Got it. Yeah, for sure. And, one guy I'd mentioned as kind of another decent value pick would be Thomas Milic. He's been decent in flashes. I like what I've seen for Seattle. He's been one of their best players on many nights.
He deserved a pick.
Teams.
He
definitely did. So at 151, I'm okay with this. But yeah, no, for me, the winners for sure by a decent margin are the Nashville Predators out of the Central Division. There's no doubt about it.
And wearing the hat, I can't say I'm fully impartial right now because I spent 5 days in Nashville and I quite like the city. It was a really good time. And yeah, look, turning me into a casual Preds fan. So that's
Why
fun.
not? Absolutely. So thanks so much for tuning in today. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On NHL Today. We've got a bunch of little segments for you that you can check out, news about the day, all that stuff. And if you're listening, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment about what you liked, how your team did in this draft, and how hopeful you are about the future. This has been Hattie Kalakash and Sebastian High from Locked On NHL Prospects, and we'll see you next time.